Today we have another story from the Sesame Street Bedtime Storybook featuring Jim Henson's Muppets. The one we're going to read today is The Case of the Mysterious Mud Puddle Monster. The Case of the Mysterious Mud Puddle Monster. One day, Big Bird decided to take a walk around Sesame Street. He opened his door and stepped out right into a mud puddle. "Oh, drat," he said, "phooey." But it was too nice a day to fret, so he went on his way, forgetting all about the puddle. First, he went to the home of Oscar the Grouch, who lived in a trash can and collected trash. Big Bird wanted to give him some old papers he had saved. Oscar said, "Swell, now leave me alone." And Big Bird left, happy that Oscar liked his present. Next, he stopped at Mr. Hooper's store for birdseed soda and an apple. Prairie Dawn was minding the store for Mr. Hooper, and Cookie Monster was also there, having a cookie sandwich. Big Bird drank his soda, ate his apple, and chatted for a while with his friends. Then he remembered that Ernie and Bert had invited him to come see their new tablecloth, so he decided to visit them. After he had admired the tablecloth, which was covered with blue and white squares, he told Ernie and Bert how much he liked it and set off for home. When he got there, he saw Sherlock Hemlock, the world's greatest detective, looking through a magnifying glass at something on the ground. "Hi, Mr. Hemlock," said Big Bird. "Are you looking for clues with your magnifying glass?" "Indeed I am, Big Bird," said Sherlock Hemlock. "I, Sherlock Hemlock, the world's greatest detective, am investigating my newest case." There he is. "Oh boy," said Big Bird. "What kind of case is it?" "It's the case of the mysterious mud puddle monster," answered Sherlock Hemlock. "The mud puddle monster," said Big Bird, feeling just a little frightened. "What's a mud puddle monster?" "That," said Sherlock Hemlock, "is the mystery. I don't know what a mud puddle monster is, but I'm going to find out, or I'm not Sherlock Hemlock, the world's greatest detective." Sherlock Hemlock pointed his finger at the ground. "I already have some clues," he said. "Look, there are footprints, and do you see where they start? They start right here at this mud puddle. That means that whoever made these footprints came out of the mud puddle. Now, who else would come out of a mud puddle but a mud puddle monster?" "My goodness, you're clever, Mr. Hemlock," said Big Bird, bending over to look at the muddy footprints and the puddle. He said thoughtfully. "That looks just like the mud puddle I stepped in a little while ago." "Egad," said Sherlock Hemlock, "another clue. When you stepped in the mud puddle, you made the mud puddle monster mad. That is why he came out of the puddle." "He's mad? Do you mean he's mad at me?" asked Big Bird, feeling a little more frightened than before. "Yes, indeed," said Sherlock Hemlock. "He's mad at you. He's also quite large." "Oh dear, how can you tell that?" Big Bird wanted to know. "From his footprints," Sherlock Hemlock told him. "They're enormous. Only someone very, very big could make footprints like that. Now let us follow them and see where they lead." Big Bird and Sherlock Hemlock followed the mysterious footprints, which led straight to Oscar's trash can. Big Bird knocked on the lid and Oscar peeked out. "What do you want now?" he said. "We're looking for the mud puddle monster," said Big Bird. "Have you seen him? He's great big, all covered with mud, and he's real mad." "No, I haven't seen him," said Oscar, but I'll help you look for him. If he's as nice as he sounds, I'll invite him home for dinner. Big Bird and Sherlock Hemlock and Oscar then followed the footprints right down the street and into Mr. Hooper's store. They asked Cookie Monster and Prairie Dawn if they had seen the Mud Puddle Monster. He's great big and all covered with mud, and he's real mad, and he probably has lots of teeth and a nose shaped like a doorknob, said Big Bird. Cookie Monster and Prairie Dawn shook their head. I've never heard of a Mud Puddle Monster, said Prairie Dawn, and I know I've never seen one. But he came right into the store, Big Bird insisted. Cookie Monster said, well, we not see him. Egad, said Sherlock Hemlock. Another clue. The Mud Puddle Monster came right into the store and no one saw him. That can only mean one thing. The Mud Puddle Monster is invisible. Oh no, said Big Bird, feeling more frightened than ever. He's invisible? Now what do we do? Sherlock Hemlock looked at the footprints through the magnifying glass. We must keep following the footprints, he said. Come along. They go right back out of the store. Okay. Do you know who the Mud Puddle Monster is yet? What do you think? Let's see. Cookie Monster and Prairie Dawn decided to come too. Prairie Dawn hung up a sign that said, closed. Back soon, I hope. And they all set off together. The tracks now led to Ernie and Bert's door. Big Bird suddenly realized something. Hey, that Mud Puddle Monster went everywhere I did. I went to Oscar's can, Mr. Hooper's store, and Ernie's apartment too. Of course, said Sherlock Hemlock. It is all beginning to add up. He was following you. Big Bird didn't say anything, but he was as frightened as he'd ever been. Then Sherlock Hemlock said, wait, here's another clue. The Mud Puddle Monster is still inside Ernie and Bert's apartment. See? The footprints go in, but they do not come out. Big Bird knocked loudly on the door. Ernie opened it, and Big Bird said, Ernie, a monster is hiding in your apartment. Oh dear, said Ernie, what kind of monster? It's the Mud Puddle Monster, said Big Bird. He's great big, and he's mad, and he's all covered with mud. He has lots of teeth, too, said Prairie Dawn. And a nose like a doorknob, chimed in Cookie Monster. And ears like tennis shoes, Big Bird went on, getting more excited. You can't see him because he's invisible, Sherlock Hemlock reminded everyone. I want to invite him home for dinner, said Oscar. This is terrible, said Ernie. What are we going to do? And with that, they all began talking at once. Soon, Bert came to the door to find out what was going on. Big Bird pointed to the muddy footprints. Look, Bert, he said, those muddy footprints go into your apartment and they don't come out again. See right there. There are the footprints again. Of course they don't come out again, said Bert. All the mud came off on our carpet. I've just been cleaning it up. Next time you come to visit us, Big Bird, I wish you would wipe your feet. Me? Said Big Bird. Why? What did I do? I just told you, said Bert. You got mud all over our carpet when you came to see our new tablecloth. Those are your footprints. My footprints, Big Bird looked down at his feet. Sure enough, his feet and the footprints were the same size and shape. Sherlock Hemlock also looked at Big Bird's feet. Then he announced, Aha! The final clue. I have solved the mystery. He turned to Big Bird and said, You are the mysterious Mud Puddle Monster. Who? Said Big Bird. Me? Yes, said Sherlock Hemlock. I, Sherlock Hemlock, the world's greatest detective, have piled clue upon clue, sifted all the evidence, and arrived with astounding swiftness at the conclusion to another baffling mystery. You are the Mud Puddle Monster. Oh dear, thought Big Bird. How silly. I'm not the Mud Puddle Monster. Wait, there's probably no such thing as a Mud Puddle Monster. But he didn't tell Sherlock Hemlock that. After all, he said to himself, even the world's greatest detective makes mistakes. Well, said Sherlock Hemlock, I must be going now. My job here is finished. Don't thank me. It's all in a day's work. Then he waved goodbye to everyone, turned, and went off, looking about him through his magnifying glass for his next case. Phooey, said Oscar, some mud puddle monster. I'm going home. I'm just glad everything is all right after all, said Prairie Dawn. Now I can go back to minding Mr. Hooper's store. Me come with you, Prairie Dawn, said Cookie Monster. All the excitement make me hungry. Boy, said Ernie, I think I feel like reading a nice, unscary story with no monsters. What do you say, Bert? Bert said he thought that was a good idea. Big Bird, who was very happy to know he wasn't being followed by a big, angry, muddy monster with a nose like a doorknob, decided to take a nap. Solving mysteries always makes me sleepy.